Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds.
Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month.
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
If I sang like Will I Am, would I get through the voice?
Answer me this, answer me this.
Would you marry, shag or kill yourself given the choice?
Answer me this, Helen and Ollie, answer me this.
Usually, listeners, we like to start the show with some of your feedback about some of the things we've talked about.
Don't reveal the process, Helen. Keep it a mystery.
Usually, listeners, we like to start the show by sawing somebody in half, even though you can't say it. No.
It's the only way I can talk these days. The only thing that stimulates me into action.
Show me the woman's innards and then put her back together. Then I'll do the podcast. All I meant to say was I have some feedback.
Oh, right.
Myself,
okay, good. Oh, good. Well done.
About something we talked about last week. Joe from Seattle's question about whether it's ever okay to share an ice cream cone.
Right.
And this is a little tangential, but I thought it's never acceptable to feed somebody fruit in company. Because I went for brunch at my friend Julie's house. She lives with her brother. Her brother came in from jogging with his girlfriend, all sweaty, wearing jogging gear. Mm-hmm. Started feeding his girlfriend fruit.
You didn't do full on, like, here comes the plane.
It wasn't cutesy. It was more like, if we went into my room, I could stick my dick in your mouth rather than this bit of mango.
Right, okay. Yeah. So actually you felt disrespected in a way. They weren't acknowledging your presence.
I just thought, for God's sake, they've only been together for about 6 weeks, and I know people are unbearable in new couples, but public boundaries, right? But you're right, I should make an exception for babies and people who are incapacitated or the elderly.
And, I mean, even phallically shaped comedy in the right hands. I mean, Mike Myers is allowed to do that joke. It's just maybe your friend Julie's brother just isn't up to it, doesn't have the comic chops.
When Martin is driving, sometimes I have to administer the snacks because he needs his hands to drive. But even then, I sort of throw them in from a short distance away.
It's because you find the idea of physical contact with me repulsive.
Well, the other thing we sometimes like to start episodes with...
is good news!
Is good news, exciting news. And this news is so exciting, listeners, that I've been screaming constantly for a week, which is why my voice is slightly strained. The real reason my voice is like this, listeners, is because I've been on a 4-day stag do bender. And this is what happens to my body when that happens.
So how much Stephen Sondheim did you listen to?
Anyway, the exciting news, yes, that is that Answer Me This is now on SoundCloud.
Yay.
If you like listening to things via SoundCloud rather than iTunes or some other podcatcher, then now you can. Go to soundcloud.com/answermethis.
So delightfully orange, isn't it, SoundCloud?
I'm on SoundCloud.
All right.
I've got 3 accounts. They're all brilliant. You should follow that too.
The thing I like about SoundCloud is you can have the comments on every second of the file. And the reason why I like this is because recently the controversial Beyonce and Andre 3000 cover of, I think it's Back to Black, of the Winehouse catalogue has come out. And I was listening to it, and just every second on the bar underneath, the comment would come out going, "This is fucking awful. This is shit. This is shit. God, I can't believe anyone allowed this."
Web 2.0, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that's the good news. Here's the sad news from Rob from Harrow, who says, "I heard on the radio that JLS has split up. Ollie, answer me this. Why did it take so long?"
Do you know, I actually think they've called this very well.
Yeah, 5 years is a long time in boy band.
I think they've left at the height of their powers. Well, not quite the height. I suppose the peak was 2009.
Yeah, because I can't remember any of their singles since She Make Me Wanna, which was summer 2011. I think we've mentioned this before, because it's like London to Ibiza or something.
LA to Africa. And you're like, Africa's not a city. That's a continent.
Berkhamsted to Watford.
One of the songs I was listening to on this stag do... I say songs, party anthems. Was that one by Pitbull? I know.
Does he have to wear a muzzle?
The one he bloody should. The one they were playing is the one called International Love.
I'm not acquainted.
Quite nice.
It goes like Miami, LA, so international. And you're like, they're not international. Those are just cities in the States.
They're in different time zones.
He's not saying longitude, yes.
Maybe
Leipzig, that's international. Uttar Pradesh, that would be international.
Maybe the original lyric is so intranational, and some proofreader spell checked it in there.
Why were we talking about Pitbull?
Because that song, International Love,
sorry,
like the JLS song.
It inspired you.
Yeah.
And now that JLS are no more, who's going to inspire you to think about Pitbull?
To think about bad lyrics in pop songs.
JLS, how could you do this?
I actually thought they were aging quite gracefully as well.
Yeah.
Apart from Aston, who I think is Benjamin Button, basically. I think he's maybe that's the reason they stopped, is that in 5 years' time he'll be 7.
Yeah, he'll have to go to school again.
Considering that they started being all backflips and genuinely boys,
You can't keep that up, can you, way into adulthood?
so you can't. But I think they are a man band now, and they've dealt with that quite well. So I was actually quite surprised that they've called it a day. But apparently the reason was.
According to which sources?
This is the exclusive article in The Sun, which revealed it exclusively in The Sun, Britain's favourite paper. It said that the reason was they'd have to sign another 3 to 5 album deal, because their 5 album deal had come to an end.
Oh, I thought it might be like a contract was up or something, seeing as it's nearly 5 years.
And I don't think it was that they didn't want to do another album. I think apparently they sort of looked around the room and said, guys, are we still going to be wanting to do this when we're 33?
Do we still have art to give?
And they sensibly said no.
Well, good for them. And also, they're worth $6 million each, making them the 19th most rich UK reality stars.
That's a great fact.
Two places below Paul Potts.
Who's number 1?
Cowell, of course.
Oh,
Simon
okay.
Cowell.
Does he count as a reality star?
Or even UK anymore. Well, yeah, I mean, they've got all of the girls allowed in there. The thing I found remarkable about this rich list of UK reality stars is that at number 20, one place below JLS, was a man called Paul Teresi.
Never heard of him.
I hadn't either, but he came 4th.
Well, let me guess.
Oh.
Came 4th.
In?
Pop star to opera star.
World's worst person.
Was I close in that it was...
No. Not that genre. Not model turned actor, not Project
okay.
Catwalk.
I bet someone who's in like driving school or airport and managed to spin off, get a book deal or something would do really well.
I'm going to cut to the chase. He came 4th in the first series of The Apprentice, and he is the 20th richest reality star.
Good God.
Above Badger!
Yeah, but the first series of The Apprentice, they actually employed people who knew something about business, didn't they? So it's not necessarily a surprise that statistically, out of that group of people, reality TV stars, they'll be the ones with the most business acumen. Even though the series then became a show where you laugh at people for having no business acumen.
I think, though, the recent Big Reunion series also may indicate that perhaps they just wanted out. JLS give a good front that they're having a nice time and they don't argue and stuff. But the Big Reunion suggested that bands that looked like they're having a great time back then were not. They were having a horrible time. They were on drugs, they were miserable, they were angry, they were psychologically disturbed. It makes me wonder whether One Direction are having all that kind of puppyish fun they appear to be.
It makes me wonder, I was looking as well, in the Sun article, not to suggest I've only had a single source on this pressing matter.
It is the exclusive.
It is, it's the world exclusive.
Why go to anything less?
They said at the end what they're all going on to do.
Teacher training, property development, gym ownership.
So you're not far off.
Denim.
So I think it got increasingly tragic as it went through the list.
Is the one that is like a spokesperson for multiple sclerosis going to do more of that?
It didn't mention that, but yes, I think he will. Ritzy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he will.
One of them will do songwriting.
Well, here's what it says.
For Pitbull.
And see if you agree with me that this gets increasingly tragic as it goes along. Marvin is a DJ on Capital FM and has become a reporter for Daybreak.
And also, he's about to have a child with Rochelle from the Saturdays, and I'm sure they can farm out photo shoots that they get paid a lot of money for.
Aritse has his own management company looking after the next generation of pop stars.
That's the Simon Webb approach.
Yep. Then, like I say, increasingly tragic. Aston has just finished Sky's hit show Got to Dance.
He's got to go back to school, though.
And JB has bought a deer farm in Scotland. That's just unbelievable.
That's the best one.
That's like Rupert Grint buying an ice cream van and not doing any acting anymore.
That's like Alex James making cheese.
Do you think he's going to dress as a proper deer farmer as well?
I hope so, like Abs out of 5.
Yeah, but he's such an unconvincing farmer because he's got that ridiculous kind of fake Jamaican accent and all those neck tattoos. It's not very Lincolnshire.
It's not.
Hi, Helen, Ollie. It's Susanna and Tanya. We're in Bermondsey. We've had quite a lot of wine, and we're talking about Michelle Obama's hair. We were just wondering, why do Americans call a fringe bangs?
Here's an interesting, although unfunny link with the previous question. Michelle Obama's father also had multiple sclerosis.
Oh, that's sad.
So there we go. So we've gone from her dad and Aritse's mum. What are the chances of that?
It's a very cruel disease, no matter which celebrity parent it strikes.
Correct. Like I say, not funny, but, you know.
Well, it made me feel very depressed now.
Worth pointing out, I thought.
Well, anyway, it's an equine reason for the linguistic difference.
Really?
Yeah.
But no one compares Michelle Obama to a horse, no
Oh,
one.
I wouldn't dare. Well, she's as noble as a horse.
She's a very good-looking horse, though. She's a fine filly if she's a horse.
I tell you what, I feel like everybody's life would be better if they got to see Michelle Obama every day.
Somebody likes Michelle Obama.
I do. Do you know what? I feel weepy every time I see a picture of the Obamas looking at each other lovingly. But anyway, the reason why they're called bangs in America is because it used to be short for bangtail, which was a hairstyle of horses' tails, where they would cut it across the top in a straight line, like right below the tailbone.
So you could see the arsehole.
I guess so.
Also, the horse could go to the toilet more efficiently, probably more likely the reasons.
So you could perv on the horse's arse. And
you're a horse pervert.
It's funny, well, I don't think of myself as someone who spends a lot of time analysing animals' arses. But
the cat.
You knew there was a but coming.
Hey, wordplay.
That's what she said.
She makes me wanna...
The other day, yes, the cat jumped onto my lap, and I hadn't seen her for a week. I'd been away. And I did notice that her bum looked different. I thought, that's weird, because I'm not aware that I know what my cat's bum looks like.
Oh, fucking hell.
And yet, what it was...
Where's this story going?
It's not going anywhere.
Right.
What it was, I think, is she just had a bit of a clean. So it just had that very clean...
Jesus
There's
Christ,
like a little slither of pink in there.
I don't feel well.
And I thought, well, that's interesting. Like, I've obviously spent
cleaned
enough
the bum
time looking at her
especially.
arse, intentionally or unintentionally, that I can notice.
We were talking about Michelle Obama, who is such a nice thing to think about. Then we go on to your cat's
Just a
arsehole.
few short leaps to my cat's bumhole.
You're never safe when you're listening to Answer Me This, are you?
I've got a question. Then email your question to answermethispodcast@googlemail.com. 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 Answermethispodcast@googlemail.com.
So, retrospectors, what historical events are we ticking off on this week's run of Today in History?
On Monday, the anniversary of the day Ozzy Osbourne and a bat came face to face on stage.
On Tuesday, we go back to the future with a potted history of the DeLorean.
On Wednesday, why is the Pope guarded by those guys in floofy hats?
On Thursday, how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ended up in Cleveland.
And on Friday, was Henry VIII really an asshole, or was it just the result of a jousting accident?
We discuss this and more on Today in History with the Retrospectors. 10 minutes each weekday, wherever you get your podcasts.
A question of relationships now from Jamie, who says, I've been seeing my girlfriend for 2 years now, and I have a history of getting her unconventional birthday presents.
Not sure 2 birthdays is enough yet to fully establish a pattern. That's more like a callback.
Some of these presents, he continues, work, and some of them are bunged in the back of my cupboard, never to be seen or used.
Mm-hmm.
I had a flatmate who did this once. I gave him presents, and then he'd almost always just put them in the cupboard, unused, entirely unused, in a cupboard that I could see in the flat we were sharing.
No, Ollie, this is our museum cupboard where we put all of our best things. I just take mine to presents to the charity shop.
Yeah, I do that. I had my fastest turnaround ever this year. I took something to the charity shop on 27th of December. Yeah. The first year, continues Jamie, I got my girlfriend a belly dancer outfit.
Wow, that's optimistic, isn't it?
Wow.
I thought this would keep us both amused for a number of years to come.
Jesus.
It has been very cold this year.
The second year, continues Jamie, I purchased, there's a theme developing here, a body moulding kit with the intention of making a mould of her boobs.
Oh.
Painting the mould in vibrant colours and hanging it on the wall for our future grandchildren to marvel at.
Is this a present more for you than for her, again?
It remains untouched. This year, I have landed on the idea of a shiwi.
Actually, that's quite thoughtful.
Oh, yeah, it's really romantic, isn't it? Classic romantic
Oh,
present,
I didn't describe it as romantic.
Roses, chocolate, shiwi.
Why didn't you give me one of them instead of an engagement ring?
For those of you listeners who don't know, and we have discussed this in a previous episode of Answer Me This, but you haven't all got memories that go back 7 years, a shiwi...
It's like a funnel.
Yeah.
To emulate the man piss at a festival.
That's right. Anyway, Jamie continues. This would be very useful, the shiwi, for when we go to the secret garden party, or for camping in general.
You can't all sleep in the shiwi. It's too small, and it will stink of piss.
Plus, my girlfriend has a bad habit of peeing in public quite often.
Why don't you get her some nappies?
So, Helen, answer me this. Do you think this is a good idea? Obviously, I will be buying backup presents too.
I think this is a backup present. I mean, this is like one of the comedy small gifts, and then you give her something that is nice and that she wants and that is a bit romantic and is worth a bit of money.
Yeah, you know, I think that goes actually for the tip mould and the belly dancer outfit as well.
Think?
I think if in both those years you'd given her something more romantic and more, frankly, straightforward, and then that was the quirky present, she probably would have got away with wearing it.
You can't build up to the Shiwi.
No, you can't.
She will be disappointed. Even though we said you've only got 2 birthdays on your graph, that's not enough points to make a straight line. I think you do have enough data to interpret that you're
shit at buying presents.
Yeah, she's not a fan of your technique, and maybe you should consider adjusting the technique. Maybe look at some of the presents she does seem to really like. Maybe they're from other people.
From ex-boyfriends.
And from those, consider what it is she likes about them.
Yeah.
And then buy something not necessarily similar to them, but has in common the qualities that makes her like those things.
Something that an algorithm might pick up. A person. Yeah. People who like this also liked.
There should be an app for that, shouldn't there?
There should, yeah. Oh, that's a good idea, Helen. People who like Shiwis also like belly dancer costumes.
If my girlfriend would like a Shiwi, but I need to get her something good, what should I get her? App?
I'll tell you what I think he should do, actually, in this specific circumstance, is he should put the Shiwi in a bag of general outdoorsy camping fun. Because if that's the context he wants it to be seen, we're going on holiday, we're going to the Secret Garden Festival, we'll go together. You should put other stuff in the bag you can use during the weekend away.
What, drugs?
If that's your thing, or condoms could be a racy thing, but you also put in some things that... Exactly. Put in some things that actually are a bit more respectful.
Why not include it in a fun lucky dip?
Or pass the parcel, where it's one of the outer layers.
Yeah. All of these are good suggestions. I mean, they're better than just giving her that. What's going to be awkward is when they move house and they're going to be looking for a house that's got one of these cupboards where she can put everything that he's bought her. Because regular listeners will recall that I'm shortly to move house, fingers crossed, touch wood. When we were looking for properties, one of the things that was very important to me was that we had a Costco cupboard.
Yeah.
I need a cupboard to put my oversized peanut butter, 100,000 tea bags.
A year of bin bags. Cat litter.
Yeah, tin tomatoes, all that stuff.
Gazebo, all the other stuff they sell at Costco.
Yeah,
skis.
Coffin, wheelchair. And so...
Side of beef.
And yeah, so therefore, I actually needed, it was one of my specifications, even though we go to Costco to save money, ironically, we're probably ending up spending thousands more because I've got a house with a garden shed big enough to fit loads of loo roll in it.
Yeah, but
useful.
When the rapture comes, you'll still be wiping your ass when everyone else is pissing on the ground because they've run out of Shiwis.
Helen? Oliver? Though life is full of questions, there are answers you must know. 1. No, it will not fall off, but moderation in all things too. Yes, there probably is, but we won't find out in our lifetimes. 3, most people prefer Connery, but my personal favorite is Dalton. 4, if you try and slip a 1, it would ruin your friendship.
Listeners, you know how much we enjoy hearing you ask your questions in your own voice when you dial this number.
02081235877.
Or when you Skype answer me this. So please give us some enjoyment and deliver your questions telephonically if you wish, like this person has done.
Hello, this is Jessie in Zurich. Answer me this. Why is the Volvo typically owned by a woman, but it has a male emblem on the front?
Just because you see women driving them, I don't think you can necessarily extrapolate from that they're owned by women. I think they're owned by families, aren't they?
It's like you see Ollie driving his car, but you don't extrapolate that it's a man's car.
My car now is relatively masculine.
No, it isn't.
Oh, it is?
No, it isn't.
I use the word relatively. Why is it not relatively masculine?
Because it looks like a toy.
It's got leather seats.
So?
Beige? That's not a woman's colour, is it beige?
Woman's colour. It's a strong masculine colour.
I appreciate it's not a strong masculine car.
It's got antlers on the top and a football stadium on the bonnet.
I used the word relatively, but it's not a baby blue plurial with a 7-stage roof, which is what I had before.
That wasn't even a feminine car. That car was like a toddler's shoe.
Anyway, I drive a Mini, by the way, listeners. Anyway, so I don't think that you can say that Volvos are typically owned by women.
And no, my dad had one. He's not a woman.
They're owned by people with kids, right? Because their safety and security.
Well, my dad had his because the boot was big enough for him to transport sculptures in.
And a dog.
This was pre-dog that he bought the Volvo. But yes, you could get 2 dogs in it very easily.
2 dogs and a sculpture if necessary.
Would not put the sculpture in with the precious dogs.
But there's something in that tells you why the logo is shaped, as Jessie mistakenly also says, like the male sign. So the reason the logo is shaped as it is, which is a sort of circle with an arrow, so it is a bit like the sign for the male gender.
Because I can never even remember which one of those is male and which is female.
It is the male one with the arrow, so it is a bit like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually based on the Roman sign for the planet Mars.
That's a very masculine planet.
Indeed.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
The god Mars was a very angry man, and he was in charge of war.
Yeah.
So I know what you're thinking, what's this got to do with safety and Volvos? Well, most weapons were made
Fit in the back of a Volvo.
Most weapons were made of iron back in the day.
Right.
And by back in the day, I mean in Roman times.
Okay.
So the Romans started using for iron the same word that they used for Mars, the god of war.
Right.
So the symbol of Mars came to be the symbol for iron.
Okay, and then fast forward a couple of thousand years.
Yeah. And the guys who found Volvo started the company from an iron ball bearings company. They used to make ball bearings, and then they developed cars. So they wanted something that referenced iron in their logo.
Tenuous, isn't it?
So it's partly the cocooning and the safety of the iron that's being referenced there. It's also, and this is another Latin reference, the reason that the logo appears to be moving slightly, so the arrow is slightly off to the right, is to give the impression of rolling, because roll, in Latin, volvere. So that's what it is. It's a revolving symbol for iron.
So it seems such an oblique connection.
That's wonderfully poetic.
It's kind of brilliant, though, isn't it? And when you look into these corporate histories and you realise that a lot of thought went into designs you just don't think about at all. I mean, on the other hand, they could have reverse engineered all this afterwards, couldn't they? Someone could have just drawn a circle with an arrow on it and said, "Yeah, it looks moving car.
Yeah,
that'll work."
That looks catchy. That'll work in all sorts of different countries.
Yeah.
Circle with an arrow.
Volvo sounds like vulva. Let's work it out afterwards.
I'll name it after my great auntie Volvo. Let's go to lunch.
Here's a question from Sam in Leeds, who says, "My beautiful new wife is American, and we're currently in the middle of the stress and heartbreak of applying for a visa so she can come to England and live with me. Since I've stared at the word visa more times than I ever thought I would, Helen, answer me this. Where does the word visa come from?"
Well, it's Latin again. The French borrowed from Latin to invent the term carta visa, which was the document that had to be examined. And the examination is from the Latin word visere, meaning to see, to look into.
Wait, so carta visa, does that literally mean better paper what you look at?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, the Romans are treated with such respect for having invented a lot of things first. Law and order and art and culture and war. But actually...
Straight lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's all good stuff, don't get me wrong.
Corners.
It's all stuff that we're very much influenced by now.
I think you might be slightly simplifying antiquity, but do go on.
Mohawks.
But actually, if you're ancient Roman or ancient Chinese or ancient Iranian or ancient Greek or whatever, it's a bit easier, isn't it, to stumble across a concept for the first time? Like, you wonder how much of this is resonating down the generations because they did it best.
Yeah.
Or just because actually, of course, if you look back to Roman times, there was some sort of equivalent to this.
Important things were named in Latin, weren't they? For a couple of millennia after the Romans.
Well, it showed that you were educated, didn't it? And, you know, and I guess internationally as well, people understood it.
Yes, good point. It was like the Esperanto of its day.
If you don't even know what a question is, then you're probably at the wrong place. 'Cause religion's on godcasts, dogs are on dogcasts, fish are on rodcasts, but we don't do fish. 'Cause on this podcast, you answer me this.
A question of literature now from Eliza from Newcastle upon Tyne, who says, "I had my first novel published last November.
Wow.
I am only 18.
Wow.
Double veritable John Keats we've got listening
That's
here.
awesome.
It's very precocious.
And I was 17 at the time of signing my deal with the publisher.
Oh, blimey. She's like a Newcastle upon Tyne novelist version of Taylor Swift.
I thought it would be best to tell my parents.
Yeah, probably be pretty excited, right? I would be if my child had a novel published.
Yeah. As they might be concerned by their teenage daughter suddenly receiving checks and letters from a mysterious American company.
Well, I'd be concerned because receiving a cheque from someone in a different country usually incurs fees.
I told them, my parents, I was having a book published, though I refused to divulge the plot, the title, or even the name I'd written it under. So there's a pseudonym involved.
Coy.
I did this because I actually write porn.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Gay porn.
Oh.
Gay porn for bored housewives and sexually frustrated teenagers who like to read about boys kissing.
Eliza, you're very businesslike for a teenager. You've identified a niche, and I don't mean that in a double entendre way.
And you fill it as you go.
You've identified a hole in the market.
Filled it with your pen.
She's not doing it for the glory hole.
Martin!
It's good.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, what she's done in many ways just splurge everything she had to say.
Whatever you do, don't spunk your advance at the wall.
Any more?
I'm done for the time being.
I mean, the important thing is she didn't just knock it off. So, she continues. Now you can understand. Now the terrible double entendres we've made will help you understand why I might not want my parents to find out about this.
Okay.
Or any of my extended family, for that matter.
I'm sure there are lots of bored housewives and sexually frustrated teenagers in your extended family.
In every extended family.
Yeah.
It's an explicit book in which explicit things happen, which I describe in explicit detail.
Well, if you didn't do those things, then this would not work for the porn market.
I assumed my parents would respect my wishes.
Why would you assume that?
Yeah.
Parents spend a lot of your childhood violating your privacy.
And not Google different combinations of my names and initials until they found my book. How wrong I was. My father proceeded to post a link to my book to his Facebook.
Weird!
And several of my cousins and one of my aunts then bought it and read it. Luckily, they live at the other end of the country to me, and one of my cousins felt the need to text me and tell me that she enjoyed it. But I'm nonetheless mortified and have been in a state of mortification ever since.
Oh, no. I think, actually, I can't imagine publishing any novel that I didn't feel quite squeamish about my family reading, even if it had zero naughty bits, just because it's quite an exposing thing to do, even if it's the realm of the imagination. It's showing off a side of you that they may not know at all.
But you do get over it. I mean, I'm living proof that you get over it. You know,
That's true.
I've said things in this podcast about my life that I wouldn't necessarily want my parents and my grandmother to hear, but they have. Eliza continues, answer me this. How on earth am I supposed to look my family in the eye ever again?
I think you actually just appear very businesslike about it. Just say, I knew that after 50 Shades of Grey, publishers were all looking for this, and I knew that gay fiction was much less common in the mainstream, so I decided it would be very pragmatic to write it.
Wow, you've managed to make someone who writes gay porn sound boring if they say that.
Thank you.
You've done it well. That's a business-like answer.
I mean, there must be lots of people who work in the adult industry or who do things which are... Well, there must be so many cabaret artists, performance artists, people just outing themselves as actors. You know, and writers and artists to their parents.
But it does tap into something in everyone's psyche, this, doesn't it? The sort of, especially older members of the family, finding out about something that is perceived by the general public to be dirty or obscene. I mean, this was the root of the scandal over the Russell Brand, Jonathan Ross phone call to Andrew Sachs, wasn't it? It wasn't just that it was an old man that they were taunting. It was the fact they were taunting him by saying, ha, 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 I fucked your granddaughter.
Yes, but...
who's a cabaret artist and gets her tits out, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, she's in something called Satanic Sluts.
Yeah.
It's got the word slut in it.
But
she's
actually,
your granddaughter.
Presumably, Andrew Sachs was actually perfectly aware of all that.
He's a man of the world.
He's a man of the world and he works in showbiz. So, but the thing that outraged people was the idea that an old man would have that information broadcast to the whole nation.
Yeah.
She hasn't actually said, though, that any of the family have reacted badly to it. She just feels awkward. Her dad might have no idea what it's about because the cousin might not have told him, the aunt might not have read it. Often, it's like Martin will give his parents one of his albums. They won't listen to it. They'll have no idea what's on there. It could be porny as he wants.
They might have put it on while they do the gardening and they're outside the house.
They didn't.
They probably did.
They probably
They
didn't.
put it on for the cat to listen to.
Well, actually,
the cat's dead.
It's funeral.
I'm almost certain that in the case of our book, Answer Me This by Helen Zaltzman and Ollie Mann, out now as an ebook or from your local bookstore, that I'm pretty sure that in our book, my dad did look in the index for his own name and then read the two anecdotes in which he featured and has not read the rest of the book. So I could have written about sexually explicit fantasies involving him if I'd used a different name because he'd never know that it was him.
I don't believe my parents have ever read it either, but they're pleased that it exists.
Oh yeah, my parents bought 6 copies. They're all in my bedroom at home. I don't know why they did that. They bought out Waterstones in Watford of copies of Answer Me This.
Depriving the rest of Watford.
Yeah.
If I were writing a dirty book, though, I would probably say to my parents, I've written a dirty book, please don't read it. It's like if I was in a film that had a lot of sex scenes, I would ask my parents not to go.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that I come from a very unusual family.
You do.
But my mum was on a sex phone-in the other week.
Whoa! She wasn't doing one of those $2.99 a minute phone lines, was she? Because you rang up and you're like, Mum? Oh, hello, darling.
No, she is a psychotherapist.
Yep.
She was discussing how to have good sex in your 40s, 50s and over.
Not something you need to know your mum's
on
tips
Late Night
of.
Love with Graham Torrington on BBC West Midlands. And she wanted me to listen to it to get the views of a young broadcasting professional.
Oh, God.
But she was sort of sheepish, but she was quite endearingly sheepish about sending me the link. Like, she warned me about 3 times before she goes, it is about having sex. And I was like, it's fine.
It's about her sex
It's like,
life.
yeah, but it's your mum having sex. And I was like, it's fine. No, but it's not about her sex life. It's like absolutely generic tips that you would give anyone who's got sexual problems. You know, she was really sheepish about sending it to me, so even she felt that, and that's...
She's not a sheepish sort of lady.
Exactly.
Did you listen to it?
I haven't listened to it yet. But that is laziness, I think, not because I'm awkward because it's my mum talking.
You're saving it for a special moment.
Eliza continues. Do I now have to start writing my porn with my family constantly in the back of my mind?
No, that would be the worst. Family porn.
That won't be good porn. Will I have to think, I mustn't write about insert kink here, or dear Auntie Susan will know about my sexual proclivity towards said kink?
I think also, if Auntie Susan is not enjoying your book, she probably won't read it. And if she is enjoying it, when she's getting off, she's probably not going to think about you.
I think I hadn't actually considered that aspect of it. If you actually consider that your own father, your apparently heterosexual father, might be sexually enjoying a book which you've written about homosexual acts. If you actually imagine him ejaculating to it, it's slightly a different league, isn't it, to just writing a book.
Now I'm
that
thinking about her dad.
Yeah. But if it's any comfort, Eliza, most erotic literature is not very appealing to men, is it?
Well, that's the thing.
Men are visual.
Yeah, the first page is probably just an illustrative one. Like a map, like at the front of Tolkien. Just a big phallus on the first page.
Big spunking cock.
Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of today's podcast. But please supply us with questions for next week's podcast via email, phone or Skype. Our contact details are on our website, answermethispodcast.com,
where you can also find links to buy beautiful merchandise, some of it featuring Martin's face, but don't let that put you off. Plus,
that's another lovely notebook with my face on.
Our first 120 episodes, which you can purchase for the bargainous price of just 79p each, and our apps for iOS and Android, which feature exclusive content every single week.
So that's a spending spree waiting to happen on our website.
So do that, and or maybe just get inspiration to send us a question for next week's show, which we very much look forward to receiving and responding to.
I would love few things more. Not nothing more, but few things.
Yeah, don't list the things. We'll be here all day.
Number 1, I'd love someone to make me a cup of tea right now. Number 4, the blissful moment of release that death will bring.
Number 9, a copy of Eliza's next book, please.